Good evening and welcome to our MCPS Waymaking special on student mental health. I want to thank everyone for joining us during this important discussion about mental health and the impact that it has in our schools and in Montgomery County. My name is Dr. Christina Chester, and I am the Director of Psychological Services for Montgomery County Public Schools. I also want to introduce my co-host, Alex. Alex is a 10th grader at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School. They are the coordinator for the Montgomery County Regional SGA's Mental Health Task Force and a student leader of their school's Our Minds Matter Club. Talking about student mental health as a community is very important. We need to normalize this conversation in our community. Due to stigma, too many individuals do not seek the mental health support, nor do they have the correct diagnosis to receive the support that they need. Students need to be especially aware of the signs of mental illness and steps that they and their schools can take to become mentally healthy. The brain is an organ of the body, just like the heart and lungs and others. Mental health is just as essential to each of us as your heartbeat or breathing. Now, next, we are excited to have our student member of the Montgomery County Board of Education, Mr. Arvin Kim, set the context for this important conversation tonight.
Hey MCPS, I'm Arvin Kim, your student member of the Board of Education. Welcome to MCPS's Student Mental Health Forum for Mental Health Awareness Week. Mental health and well-being are essential needs for students and adults to perform well academically and face better outcomes in school and in life. That's why conversations like these are so important, to destigmatize the issue and provide students with the support they need. While the mental health of students has always been important, it is especially so due to the impact of the pandemic and other crisis events that have occurred over these past 2 years. MCPS and the Board of Education have been working hard to meet the well-being needs of students and staff, improving mental health supports and services. However, we must continue to be vigilant to address the mental health needs of all of our students, staff, and families. Thank you for participating today. I hope you are able to gain valuable information to support you in this school year.
We know that people may have additional questions about mental health topics. Please go to our Waymaking special website for the link to the Waymaking videos that cover a variety of mental health topics, including stress and anxiety, the roles of the different mental health staff in our schools, the new 988 suicide and crisis hotline, and other videos.
Today, we will talk about what students are seeing in our schools and what mental health supports they feel are needed for students. Our session tonight is divided in 3 parts, 2 panel discussions and then a period for questions and answers. The first discussion will focus on what concerns students are seeing at school around mental health. The second panel discussion will focus on what students feel is needed to support mental health in schools. We will also be interspersing videos from students in the high school Our Minds Matter clubs talking about mental health in schools. Throughout, you can post your questions in the chat. Several of our colleagues will compile the questions so that panelists can respond to your question in the 3rd section of the program. I want to quickly review our highlights of this year's Mental Health Awareness Week. Students can get up to 9 SSL hours for listening to the asynchronous training opportunities marked by an SSL next to them and completing the online forum documenting what you watched and attending 2 of the live events this week. There is a range of topics of mental health on the site. Also, with each of the live events, you can ask questions to the experts during the Q&A sessions. Saturday's live event will be a resource fair that will highlight various agencies that provide mental health services in Montgomery County. Each of the live events will be virtual and can be watched on YouTube.
All right, but Before we get to the questions from our audience tonight, so let me introduce the panelists so that we can get started with today's conversation. And so to get us started, I would like to introduce our first panelist. First, we have Daniel, who is an 11th grade student at Richard Montgomery High School. He is a member of the Montgomery County Regional Student Government Association as a chief of staff and formerly the MCR Mental Health Coordinator. Welcome. Next, we have Marley. She is a senior at Clarksburg High School. After attending fundraisers for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention with her family, she decided to join the mental health movement and start an Our Minds Matter club at her school. Welcome. Next, we will have Bezawit. She is a sophomore at Montgomery Blair High School. She loves to read and write and is especially passionate about mental health in the county. She serves as the Mental Health Task Force Coordinator for the Montgomery County Regional Student Government Association. Welcome. And next, we have Lensa. She is a senior who attends Springbrook High School. Mental health to her means learning how to healthily cope with emotions and keeping yourself stable as your mental health works in conjunction with your physical health. Welcome. All right, so now we're going to begin with our first section of the show. So we hope that this is more of a dialogue, and we want to make sure that the panelists can build on what each other are saying. And there are a lot of conversations in schools around the need for mental health support for our students. And so my first question is, so what do you think are some of the needs and what is currently impacting students in the schools that you attend? Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I would first like to start off with COVID. So even though the pandemic is 2 years behind us, we're still struggling with the aftermath, and schools and especially adults need to kind of realize that students are still struggling. This may be, with family members that they may have lost during the pandemic, and just with, their own health, as many of us are still afraid of getting sick and are very mindful of the events that we go to, the things we participate in school, just because we're still afraid of getting COVID.
I actually agree with Daniel about the whole COVID situation, especially at my school. COVID was a very difficult time. Obviously, we were very isolated from our friends and peers, and coming back to school wearing masks and relearning how to socialize was especially difficult. And I think it was a really hard transition. And even now that masks aren't mandated or anything like that anymore, it's still very difficult as we try and transition back to normal.
I definitely agree with both of you. And I want to highlight what Bezawit said about relearning how to socialize. It's just a really unique situation that we were in, being virtual for nearly 2 years. And it sort of felt like we were separated from a school experience and more of having an individual experience. So we have to really transition back into building communities in our school so we feel more connected once again.
And just to add on a little bit, I also think that another thing that we kind of are struggling with is because we're in an online environment, we kind of had the freedom to kind of choose when to do our assignments. We have more time, and we also had the liberty, to kind of, since we didn't have school every single day, we could, kind of work out our time better and time manage better online. But now we're back in person. I kind of struggle with, and I know a lot of other students struggle with, kind of learning again how to learn, just making sure that we're able to, learn in person, kind of, make sure we're staying on top of things, kind of not like pushing things back, kind of not procrastinating. I know that I suffer from this a lot as I'm a big procrastinator, but I'm trying to work on, making sure that I get my assignments on time, that I'm talking to my teachers again, I'm building that bond that was lost during the online environment.
I think I'll add on a little bit to Daniel in saying that, especially with me who transitioned to high school from a COVID experience, going into different AP classes and having to, start reading large textbook chapters after kind of not doing a lot of homework or having a lighter load because of COVID, being back in that in-person environment where, again, our classes are obviously you have class time more and you don't have that Wednesday off, means that you do have to schedule that time more. And especially in the readings, you don't want to leave it all for the last minute.
Yeah, I want to add on again. Something I really noticed is just like how differently everyone learns. Personally, I found online learning to be a little bit easier, as lonely as it was. Like I was on top of my schoolwork and there was the Wednesdays off, and that was really helpful for class. But there's also, I have so many friends who struggled online and just weren't learning anything, or like there was nothing pushing them or motivating them to actually pay attention or like actually like understand and ask questions. So I think it was, I mean, like coming back to school, especially like ninth grade, with like what Alex said, like a huge course load like increase was really difficult, especially because I got so comfortable with like having a day off in the week and like getting so comfortable with like making my own schedule and doing everything on my own time. But then also my friends who really enjoyed coming back and like not being so lonely or like being so isolated from friends. And yeah.
No, thank you all for your comments. I mean, it definitely sounds like, talking about that transition from virtual learning and then going back to in person, having to learn how to re-socialize with your friends, and just, even things like, I mean, 1 minute you're wearing your mask and the next minute you're wearing your mask and then you're not, and like trying to read like facial expressions, all that stuff again, like you got to relearn how to do all of that. And then just being able, when you're home, like in virtual learning, you're able to figure out the time management piece, and then coming back, it's like, wait, I got to take this and this and this and like, and these pressures, and you don't have the Wednesday anymore. And so you got to, figure all these things out, and it can be hard as you're going through. And like you say, like, and as Bedouin said, there were some kids who were okay with it, but there were others who struggled. And, even me as a school psychologist, and working with my staff, and hearing about, all the different type of stories. There's so many kids who had different experiences during this time, and that, last year was really hard for a lot of kids. And so coming back to school this year and hearing, your voices, I think is very important. And that kind of goes into my next question in terms of, I mean, there are mental health resources in our schools, and there are some kids who participate in these mental health resources. But what do you all think are some of the negative impacts of not receiving, mental health support when a student may actually really need it?
I think some negative impacts of not having access to mental health is suppression. It could lead to you suppressing whatever it is that you're feeling. And it could eventually lead you to actually invalidating yourself, because not having that support could just lead to you believing you don't deserve that support. And it could also lead to some harmful coping habits to deal with everything that's going on, because like the question said, you don't have that support.
I absolutely agree with Lensa. I think that, first of all, an issue is being unaddressed. So just like a physical issue, then that would continue to inhibit that student's ability to really just be their best self and live a healthy life. But also the act of not getting that help is potentially internalizing that mental health stigma. If they're not getting help, it's like you're sending a message that this problem doesn't matter, you can't talk about it with other people, and then you could continue to go down that path of suppressing those feelings and not sharing them. So it's really important for us to send the message to kids now that it's important to ask for help, and there's a safe space where they can go, or resources that they can turn to, so that they can continue advocating for themselves as they grow up.
Yeah.
I
no, you can go ahead.
I really want to highlight what Lensa said about unhealthy coping methods. I think if you go so long without getting the proper help that someone needs, it can lead to like you turning to negative methods to get rid of the emotion. Like you don't want to feel what you're feeling anymore. It's such as like self-harm, suicidal thoughts, turning to like drugs or alcohol, all of these like things that obviously aren't good for you, but you feel free when you're doing them, which is like very unfortunate and sad. So that's why like mental health resources are so important, to make sure that people don't go down that path or feel like they don't want to live anymore, or that they're invalid by feeling this way, or there's something wrong with them.
I agree with everything the panel has been saying, but I also want to bring up anger. A lot of times when students don't get the mental health support they need, they often resent, their friends, their family, the school, and just everyone around them, because they feel like they're not getting the help they need. And they feel kind of this anger and resentment towards everyone, and they kind of isolate themselves because they feel like no one was there to understand them, no one is there to help them. And they kind of, you know, isolate themselves and make everything worse because they kind of bottle everything up and they try to keep it together. But that's not really what's helping, because one day, they'll burst and they'll turn to other harmful methods like we discussed, like drugs, alcohol, etc.
Some other negative impacts due to not receiving mental health support is I think it could lead to struggle with school, lack of doing your best. You can't be the best version that you can be when you don't have access to support, especially when you need it the most.
Oh, absolutely. And I really appreciate everything that you all are saying. And, and I just want to, make sure, as we have students on here that are watching this, and maybe some of the adults and their families and so forth, just to remind our students that are on here that, and as you all hearing these things, I just want to make sure, especially if you are having thoughts of like self-harm or suicidal ideation, or even thoughts of maybe want to harm somebody else, that, it's important to go and talk to a trusted adult, right? And to get help. And so as you all are on here, and I'm also going to remind folks there are mental health staff members that are in the chat. And so if you have questions, please feel free to add them in there. And then if you need help, they can also direct you to support through the chat as well. All right. Anyone else have something else that they want to share on that question before I get to the next one? No? All right. So, and what do you all think also then are some of the important pieces of receiving mental health services in our schools? And how do you all think that it can, we talked about some of the negative impacts that are there. Let's talk about some like the positive things. Like, do you all think that receiving mental health supports in schools can help students?
I think receiving mental health supports can help students. Students, obviously, everyone is different. So when a student does receive a mental health support, it can be like really beneficial to them, and not only to like just their well-being, but also, as we talked about, all these negative impacts, it can help with their academics, and also building, maybe if they have difficulty in building friendships, it can help build friendships, and really just everything that maybe we feel is like what you need to be a person, it can really help in all those different ways.
I think the most valuable thing from receiving mental health support is feeling validated and feeling heard. Because oftentimes, students feel like their concerns are not real struggles, or that no one's listening to them. But receiving the help that they need, we kind of feel liberated, because we feel like that our concerns and our problems that we're facing are valid, and that someone actually understands someone understands what we're going through, and someone is there to help us. And that feeling of felt heard and felt validated is a really important feeling, because it helps, boost your confidence, and, it makes you want to reach out for more help. It makes you want to go fix yourself. It makes you want to, strive out and, try to improve yourself every single day.
I agree that when schools acknowledge mental health, it is very validating. And I think it also sends a message that that school cares about the well-being of its students. And I think that really builds like a good relationship with the school and trust among the community, which is good for so many other things and just overall the well-being of all students.
All right. And so My next question is, and looking at some of the things that happened last year, like there was a lot of crisis events, especially in our high schools, that went on throughout the county. And one of the things I know we've heard a lot about is issues with conflict. And as Daniel brought up, and when you're not getting some of your mental health needs met, that can lead to issues like anger. And then with the lack of socialization and having to relearn how to get along with each other, and then you get angry and then it leads to fighting. Was this something that you all saw in your schools?
Yeah, so definitely. I remember in the beginning of my 10th grade year at Richard Montgomery, we had a lot of fights. And that's because I think partially because we just returned back to school and we were pressed in a high stress environment. We just didn't know what to do with that stress. I remember that fights were happening almost weekly because students will just take it out on each other. And it was over the most trivial things because that mental health support wasn't given over COVID because we were at home and all the frustrations and angers just built up, being stuck with their families, not being able to go out and socialize, dealing with the stress of just, the pandemic. And that kind of all boiled down to like physical violence in our school. I think that if there were more mental health supports, like, being like given to students and students being aware of these supports, that many of these fights could be alleviated because there were things that could have been stopped by a counselor, things could have just been stopped by a teacher, things that could have been discussed over. So I really do think that it's important that students receive the mental health supports they need in order to stop physical violence.
To add on to what Daniel said, I want to really highlight what he said about being aware. So I go to Montgomery Blair High School, which is one of the biggest high schools in the county. It has around 3,300 students, so there's a lot of us. And until recently, I didn't even know we had a school psychologist, and I feel like most students still don't know. And if they do, they don't feel comfortable going, knowing that their friends probably wouldn't. And I feel like this was impacted my school especially. Like last year, we had a lot of lockdowns and we had a stabbing incident, and mental health support wasn't exactly provided or shown and shared with the students as much as I would have liked. So a lot of students really struggled with that very traumatic experience for the kids who had to actually witness what happened, and the kids who were scared that they might not even get to go home that night. And I think it started a lot of fights, and because people just wanted to get that anger out, anger for not knowing what to do, anger for not being better informed on what was happening, anger on being out of fear. But yeah.
What Bezowitz said about the how she didn't know there was a school psychologist really resonated with me. Because just this week for the MCPS Mental Health Awareness Week, Clarksburg has been doing daily activities, and on Monday it was a mental health sort of resource fair, and it just was a quick booth in the main hallway, and I went to go help out, and this woman introduced herself to me as our school's mental health therapist. And I was like, wow, I didn't know we have a therapist assigned to our school. And she said, yeah, it's just a new thing this year. But I wish that we all would have been, I guess, alerted to this, or there would have been some sort of event where she went around and introduced herself to different classes or spoke in front of everyone and talked about what resources are available and what you can do if you need that kind of support at school. So the resources are often there, but people aren't aware of them because it's maybe expected that they initiate or they reach out if they need something, but a lot of people don't know where to reach out. So if we do more to publicize those resources and make it seem like it's for everyone, then people will feel more comfortable reaching out for help and we'll have a better environment overall for mental health.
Yeah, everything that Marley said really resonated with me as well because I also don't know who our school psychologist is, and I only just recently found out that we even had one. And I think that's really important that students know about these resources early on in the year. So if they need help, they can go contact them. And I think that also many of our staff don't even know that we have a school psychologist or all of these other resources. Because I remember talking to my counselor about some of the mental health struggles I was facing, and he was kind of telling me what to do, but at the same time, he was also shocked when I brought up the fact that, oh, we have a school psychologist. Do you know who she is? And he was really confused and he had no idea as well. So just making sure that our staff and students are aware that these mental health resources exist and we can use them anytime we want.
I also think like actively pushing the resources, because like I feel like a lot of students don't want to admit that they need help, or like don't want to have their friends find out that they need help or that they struggle with mental health. And I think we have to really show that there's nothing wrong with needing help or having mental health struggles, and like as well as like really pushing to the students that you can come. We're very open and welcoming, and there's no judgment here. But yeah, I think we really need to like find a way to get like the students to really want to join and admit that they need the help.
I think another important thing is getting rid of the stigma that's often associated with, getting your friends help. Because I know that I've been stuck in a situation where my friend needed help that I couldn't give him because, I was a student, I didn't know what to do. But I was also so afraid to go to a counselor or go to an adult at our school because there's such a stigma of being a snitch or, ratting your friends out. And I think that we need to get rid of this stigma because oftentimes we as students, there's only so much we can do. And that there are times where our friends need professional and need adults to help them through this toughest time they're going through. And just making sure that, it's okay, that students are aware that it's okay to, get the help that their friends need without, telling them, or kind of, just making sure that the friends are really getting help without their permission. I think it's really important. Just getting rid of that negative stigma of being a snitch.
And that kind of, in talking about the stigma and talking about, trying to go get help. And one of the things I know in talking with students around the county, and also I want to put in a plug for especially, our students, all of our schools have, an assigned school psychologist. And so go out and try to find them. They're usually in the counseling suite. They might be in a meeting, but they are there. So I just want to make sure everybody knows you do have a school psychologist in your building, just like all schools have school counselors, and all of our high schools this year have a school social worker for the first time. And so, we were excited about the addition of these mental health professionals. But anyway, going back to my question and talking about stigma. So how much, and I've heard this from students, so how much do you think, and this is also, for our adults in the audience to hear kind of what our students are thinking around the issue of stigma with mental health in your families? Is it something that your families want to discuss? Do they have discussions around this? Do the teachers and staff members in your building talk about mental health, or is it kind of like I'm just sticking to math and I'm sticking to English or history or whatever, and we're not, and maybe some of the adults aren't open to having these conversations when the kids want to talk about it, but they feel like they don't really have somebody to go to?
I can definitely speak for myself when I say that mental health is not a conversation that's held in my household, and I can speak for others as well when I say there definitely is a stigma surrounding mental health in many households. So starting at home, that outlet it's not there. So with it already being so closed off at home, I can see why it'd be so hard to open up in a school setting when it's not something that's welcomed at home.
Yeah, so my parents are from Korea originally, and in their country, mental health is not something that they really discuss. It's not really taught. It's kind of stigmatized as something that only, weak people do, or it's something that, everyone struggles through. So just push through it and just fight through it like everyone else. And that kind of really applied into my family as well. Mental health was not something that I even knew about as a child because my parents just didn't talk about it. And the only way I actually found out was in middle school through my advisory that there's something called depression, there's something called anxiety, and that people do struggle with this, and it's okay to express it. And I want to kind of touch on the fact that adults in the building, many teachers, like our math teachers, our science teachers, our English teachers, are pressed for time in order to teach everything they can. So that it's not a conversation that's really held in their classes. And that's something that many students kind of, struggle with, because oftentimes they may be struggling because of a certain class. For example, math might be too hard for them, or there's too much homework in one class, but they can't really talk to their teachers about it because they're afraid and they think that it's going to just show that they're weak. So I just think that it's important that teachers are able to open up and have the conversation, maybe in the beginning of the school year, and let students know, hey, I'm open to, talking with you anytime you need. Just send me an email or you can come in during lunch or something like that.
All right. So thank you all for your input in this section. I really do appreciate the comments that you all have shared. And so, and I really do appreciate, the conversation, that we're having right now. But I do know that what we're going to do is in a couple minutes, we're going to come back to our panel for more discussion on what support, they feel is needed in our schools. And then we'll also remember for our folks, we will have our question and answer period later on in the forum. But right now, while we're going to transition to more questions in a minute, again, remind you to please feel free to put your questions and reactions into the chat. As you are writing your questions, we are going to take a couple of minutes to share some thoughts from our students in our high school Our Minds Matter clubs.
Last week was extremely stressful. However, I had a teacher-student interaction that positively impacted me more than any before. I studied and I thought I was prepared for my pre-calculus test. However, as soon as I received the paper, my mind went blank. I started to freak out and my teacher, Mr. Gordon, noticed immediately and tried to calm me down. He gave me breathing exercises and told me he understood my feelings. After this experience, I really felt as if some teachers really understood the severity of mental health. He believed in me, and that belief helped me move forward. Thank you, Mr. Gordon, for realizing that the student as a person is much more important than a test.
There are endless opportunities when it comes to prioritizing your own mental health and introducing coping skills that will help you in the long run into your life as a teenager. For me, some of the activities I do to prioritize my own mental health are going for walks or bike rides, talking to my friends, listening to music, or talking to a trusted adult. All of these things help me to see something beautiful in my life that will make my day better.
So something that's really been helping me and my mental health during COVID-19 has honestly been listening to music. I know that sounds really simple, but just taking a second to put on some really heavy music has helped me kind of get rid of my emotions in a really cathartic way. Even going on walks outside kind of helps me connect to nature, and that sounds really hippie, but it's been really helpful for me, especially in the rain, just kind of going and having this feeling of nature on you. It's just, it sounds really weird, but it's really been helpful for me. Going on runs, exercising, these things sound really simple, but I think that's why they work so well, is because they're just such easy and effective methods of instant mental health relief. Also just having friends to talk to, having a teacher to talk to has been really helpful, and definitely recommend. Really helpful for me.
In the last section, we talked about what students were experiencing in our schools. We want to move now to what support students feel are needed in our schools to help students. Can each of you share what is needed to help students advocate for mental health support in schools? How can students enlist adults to support them to advocate for help?
I think the number one step would be to give the students and staff proper education about what resources we have available, how to access them, when they can be accessed, and what you can access them for.
I think a really important thing is just having staff that are willing to listen, having teachers, having counselors, and just having people there, adults there that are willing to listen to your stories, willing to, really build that bond with you and really being able to, making a comfortable environment for you to open up with. I know that last year I was really struggling with Spanish, and my Spanish teacher opened up, and I opened up with her, and I kind of confided in her as I was able to trust her and I was able to tell her some of the struggles I was going through. And I was able to work with her in order to, learn how to, time manage and learn how to study Spanish properly and kind of, grow my skills in Spanish. So I really think it's important that we have adults that are willing to open up and kind of build that dialogue and that open community.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first step is to, like Lensa said, actually educate the students and staff and teachers and actually let them know about the support that we're providing and that's available. Because like if they're not aware of it or if they don't know how to respond to like students' needs or like the needs and like support, like how can they truly help the students be the best that they can be and like help them through their mental health struggles.
I wanted to bounce off what Daniel said about teachers forming connections with students. I think it's so important for teachers to not just view students as like, I guess, just students, but as people, and to really form connections with each and every one as best as they can with having so many. Because when they know their students, at least on even a surface level, they can tell when something's off and when they're having a stressful time or a bad day, and they can be there to identify that and check up on them.
I definitely agree. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think I definitely agree with that point that you and Marley have been making on how we just should really have that bond with teachers.
I think it's also important for admin to, kind of open up the discussion first, right? Have in the beginning of the school year, let students know it's okay to talk with your teachers. Because often I know that it was really hard for me in the beginning of high school. And even now to kind of open up with my teachers, because I always thought that teachers were there to, teach and that I'm just a student just willing there to like just being there to listen. And just letting students know that they can open up to their teachers. They can, be friends with their teachers, be able to, talk about their personal problems with their teachers is something that we really need to teach to students because many students don't know that teachers are actually people as well and that they're understanding and they know that we're going through struggles as well.
And I think on that note, if each of you guys lived in like a perfect world for mental health, what would it look like for students and teachers to get their own versions of mental health support?
I think in a perfect world, first of all, people would feel comfortable asking for help if they have a mental health concern. So that sort of stigma that we're talking about is gone. And then second of all, they have a place to turn to once they feel comfortable and once that stigma is gone, they have resources like readily available so that they are comfortable advocating for themselves and then know where to look for that help.
Yeah, I agree with Marley. I think that it's important that in a perfect world that there is an open dialogue of mental health where mental health isn't stigmatized, it isn't considered something bad. And it's something that people are able to open up and discuss with and people are able to talk freely about like how people say they have a common cold or something like that. People are able to open up just as easily as that. But I also want to talk about how it's important that teachers also get the mental health support they need because I know personally from speaking with a lot of my teachers that they are also overwhelmed and they face the same struggles that we do. It's just that they also don't know who to turn to because oftentimes there's a more of a focus on mental health supports to students compared to teachers. And even though I'm not a teacher, I know that a lot of them are struggling with mental health problems themselves.
Yeah. Sorry.
You can go.
Yeah, I think that what Marley said about the stigma being gone would be like the greatest part in a perfect world. Like a student could just be like, oh yeah, I'm heading to the school psychologist right now to go talk about what I've been struggling with. Like, which is just something you wouldn't hear now. If people were to go, they would go in secret and like not tell anyone, like out of fear of being judged. So like in a perfect world, everyone would know about the school psychologist and like the resources available and be like, wouldn't be like ashamed of admitting that they need to use the resources or that they need the help.
Like Bezawit and Marley said, I think a perfect world would be a world where there isn't any stigma surrounding mental health. But I also think a perfect world, you'd always know that there's a space where you can go and receive mental health support. You always know there's somewhere to rely on. you don't have an outlet at home, you always know there's somewhere at school you can go to.
I also think in the perfect world that you have your people that are really there to support you. So this includes like your friends, your teachers, maybe like a close teacher, a teacher that you're really close with, just people that are there to support you and people that are there to, listen to you and help you through any time that you need. Because I know that oftentimes, just having like words of validation or just having people just there with you when you're going through a hard time really is the best thing because you just know that you're not alone and that there are people who care about you that are willing to listen and are willing to help you no matter what.
I definitely agree with everything, all the points you guys have brought up. Some of our schools have been participating in different social emotional learning activities and lessons. So have any of you guys engaged in these activities and seen those lessons? And what have you guys thought about them?
So personally, I have experienced the social and emotional learning lesson that was played. Well, for us, it was on Monday. I'm not sure if it's the same countywide, but it was like a kickoff to Mental Health Awareness Week. And they had a couple of different videos and breathing exercises. And it was interesting to watch how people sort of were doing and actually like breathed with the video and sort of felt like it was acknowledging something. Like we were in calc at the time and people were stressed about all the tests and homework that was piling up, and I just felt like it was so needed to take a second and just breathe in. And it was really cool to see the school acknowledging that. And there's also, I believe, like a discussion component that they're trying to put in our advisories or like our free periods recently. And I'm not sure about how effective that component is, just because certain environments are more natural for people opening up to each other. Like in my choir class, for example, we have like every Wednesday we go around and talk about what's on our mind, and it's called What's Your Beef Wednesday. And that's just kind of a natural component of the group where people are like inherently being more open with each other by having a common interest, and like singing is something that's like vulnerable. But if you're in like a calculus class, it's naturally stressful and it's not really a place where you open up. So I feel like those sorts of like discussion components can be targeted in different ways where people are in settings that they already feel comfortable and listened to in. So it's not as like forced. But I really like that they are acknowledging mental health and trying to get people discussing about it.
At my school, unfortunately, we haven't really been having those discussions and participating in those activities, but I also know it was a really busy week because of, PSAT testing and just like a lot of hectic things just going around. But we did have therapy dogs that came over to our school, and that was really, amazing. We had like also bunnies come over, and it was just really nice. A lot of students went outside. We just petted the dogs, and it was right before PSATs as well. So students were really stressed, but just like having that, just emotional therapy dogs there, and just being able to pet a dog really helped like bring our anxieties down and make us feel better about ourselves.
At my school today, we had a mental health booth in like the gym, and it was like a lot of fun. There were a lot of students there, way more than I expected. I thought it'd be like kind of empty and kids would be like, yeah, whatever. But it was really nice. There were like therapists there talking about all the things that they'll help students with. There were people from various organizations who specifically reach out to students to help them with their mental health struggles. There were like games to get your mind off of all of like the PSATs that we just finished, or like all the stress that you're getting from work. And it was really nice. And then we also had like, not today, but we have like therapy dogs come in, and they're really fun to pet. And we had like karaoke machines in the courtyard where we'd like sing and like have fun, and all the different classes would be bonding. And it was like a really good way to like de-stress, as well as like at my school, we have a mindfulness corner, and you could like do various activities. Like there's this one where you paint rocks, and I saw like security guards over there painting rocks. And I was like, this is so cute. They're participating in the mental health activities. That's so sweet. And they were painting with students and like having a great time. And it was really nice to see.
I participated in some of the activities in my school. I've had a mindfulness lesson a couple times, and I think it's been really beneficial. Like Marley said, with certain classes, it can tend to be really tense. And I took the lessons in my AP Lane class, AP exams. Things are coming up, so students tend to be really tense in that class. But as the lesson was going on, you could visibly see a difference by the end with just how much calmer and relaxed students were. And I think that actually made the lessons more effective. So I think those lessons were actually really beneficial.
I definitely agree. I think a lot of our different school-wide wellness activities have been really great, especially this week that a lot of our schools are participating in Mental Health Awareness Week and having all of those activities like therapy dogs and stuff. And so I'm really glad to see that we're all experiencing all those activities and that they're beneficial. I don't know if Daniel, you have something to add or okay. So have any of you guys participated in our student-led Our Minds Matter clubs? And if you did, could you explain to us what it's like to be part of that community?
I actually didn't know my school had an Our Minds Matter club or like even what that was until the end of last school year when I testified to the board. Now I had to like learn all about it. I was like, what is this? Does my school even have this? And I found out that it was an organization countywide, and I was like, this is so cool. This is such a great opportunity for students, but like no one knows about it and no one's going to go. Is the club even very active? And unfortunately, I don't think it is, which I think is something my school specifically can really work on, just because we have so many students, and I bet that all of them could use some help and like talk to their peers about the struggles that they're facing, see some like similarities and like relate to each other. So unfortunately, I don't think my school's club is very active, but I would love to see it become active and for that community to build as students join it and find it a safe space to talk about mental health.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with Bezowit. Our school's Our Minds Matter Club isn't very active as well. And I think it's just due to because we have also a pretty big school and the fact that our school has an open campus during lunch, so we're able to, go outside and eat. So clubs have a hard time, engaging with the RM populace. But I think that after I learned about it like a couple of weeks ago as well, I'm kind of looking into joining it because I think it's a really cool club and it's a good club that can, help students, with their mental health and really fight for change that the students deserve.
My school does have an Our Minds Matter club, and I have participated in it. And it makes me really excited because there are so many resources that this club has to offer to schools, the students in schools. And there are so many events that can be set up, and creating a space for students to feel comfortable and bringing out mental health awareness is the goal. So I found it really exciting and empowering, but it is in its early stages. So like Daniel and Bezowit said, it's hard when it's coming straight out of virtual to start being active.
So I'm glad to hear like everyone has some form of Our Minds Matter Club, because I'm president of the Clarksburg Our Minds Matter Club, and I really love the organization. If you aren't too well versed in it, Our Minds Matter is a nonprofit that helps students start mental health clubs at their schools. So it's like the umbrella organization for all of these clubs, and they actually have clubs all over the country. And they work with the student leaders very well. Like I felt really well supported running the club because it can be a lot to take on. But they provide everyone with lessons and ideas and icebreakers and all of that. And I've had a great experience running the club and watching it sort of grow into this community. And people like just when you prompt them and say, like, everyone share your recent highs and lows, or let's talk about an important issue, or let's talk about mental health, it's been really fascinating to see how people quickly open up just when they're told that this is a space for that. So that was really interesting for me as someone who was just sort of like testing the waters, like not sure how it would go when I brought this to Clarksburg. But it was a really great experience. And we're also trying to do some school-wide advocacy. And last year we hosted a guest speaker event with a representative from the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and he talked about fighting the stigma in schools. And we've also fundraised for some organizations like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. But I just think Our Minds Matter clubs are a really great space for those kind of connections that we've been talking about that we need so badly to be made so that students can feel a safe space and a sense of community in their schools.
I definitely agree with everything that Marley has said. Our Minds Matter clubs, as a leader of the Bethesda Cherry Trace High School Our Minds Matter club, I feel like they really do provide us with a lot of activities, but you can also get creative and customize them to how you want your club to maybe learn about mental health and how you want to structure the lessons. So they really give that option of customization, but also making sure that it's not an overload of work for students who are working on them. So thank you for the panel for this important discussion. We're going to hear a few more things in our Minds Matter clubs. While we're listening, we ask that you continue writing your questions and reflections in the chat box.
I want my fellow MCPS students to know that mental health is not a curse, and it is okay to experience mental health difficulties. No matter what anyone says, your thoughts and feelings are valid, and even though it may be hard, you should always reach out to a trusted person at a time of need, whether that be an adult or a student.
What do you like to do when you're stressed?
Well, I really enjoy reading.
What do you do when you're stressed?
I listen to music when I'm stressed out.
Que el cielo no es azul, ay mi amor, que es rojo dices tú, ay mi amor, ves todo al revés, ay mi amor, creo que piensas con los pies, ay mi amor, tú me traes un poco loco, un poquitito loco, estoy adivinando qué quieres y pa' cuándo, y así estoy celebrando que me he vuelto.
All right, so now we are going to transition to our question and answer section of this program. And we have been going through all of the thoughtful questions that the community has asked and has categorized them into themes. There are a lot of questions, so we probably won't be able to get to all of them. But what I want to do next is to introduce our moderators, Ms. Teresa Deathlison, our coordinator of school counseling services, and Stephanie Wallace, who's our supervisor of the well-being social workers. So thank you for coming on and helping us with our question and answer period. And so we also want to ask our panelists to come back on the screen, including Alex, our co-host. And so what we're going to do is that our moderators for the Q&A, they're just going to flip-flop back and forth, asking the panel questions that have come forward from our chat. So I think I have suicidal thoughts, and let's say that you're at home, then, or your friends at home, you know, it's still important to go talk to a trusted adult like a family member so that they can go and potentially, we have a new service called 988, and it's kind of like 911 except it's for mental health. And they will go and talk with you. It's a crisis hotline that is sponsored by our federal government, and that they can go and get help for you as well. And so, or the family members can go and take them to the Montgomery County Crisis Center, which is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can go and get an assessment done to see if you need help. But the biggest piece is, don't keep it a secret. You have to tell somebody. When we learn through our Signs of Suicide Prevention program in our secondary schools how to act, how to acknowledge your friends' feelings, how to care for them, and how to tell a trusted adult to go get help right away. Don't hold on to it. Don't wait till the next day. Don't wait till an hour later. Tell somebody right away. Okay.
All right, our next question is, what can students do when they feel scared in school after an incident?
So something I'll say is, just talking to your counselors about it, right? So just going to the counseling office. I know that usually after a time of crisis, the counseling office is usually open for all students just to come in and just talk about how they feel. Just going to your counselor, talking about it, meeting with your school psychologist, and talking to a trusted adult at the school, because oftentimes adults are also scared about the incident that happened. Just having that conversation with them really can make you feel better, just to know that other people are having the same thoughts as you.
Our next question is, how can we improve communication between the MCPS offices and staff and the school building staff regarding mental health resources or referral options available in that building on any given day?
I think we really can just tell most of the teachers, like sending out however we really can, like with emails, and just making sure that teachers are aware. I know a lot of teachers do check their email. So just making sure that teachers maybe get an email saying, hey, we have X resources for today. This is what we're trying to do, and we're trying to help students. So make sure that they're aware of those resources.
All right, our next question is, who can I meet with if I'm feeling stressed about being overwhelmed with deadlines and work?
I think that students can obviously meet with their counselors. They're there to help you and talk to you. And but I think what's more important is with specific classes, like for example, in middle school especially, I struggled a lot with Spanish and the deadlines and just understanding the basics of the language. And it like caused my mental health to be not so great. So going to the teacher in the class that you're struggling with, talking to them. Teachers are very understanding when it comes to mental health, and you can ask for extensions on deadlines. I used to be so scared, still kind of am scared on asking for deadlines just because I mentally cannot do the work, or I have so much work that I just can't find the time for everything. So students need to learn to not be scared to reach out to their teachers specifically that they need more time to complete an assignment, or that they need a better or more explanation on a topic that they taught.
So this next question is 2 parts. So how do we find out who our mental health people are? And the second part is, if we talk to a counselor, will they tell everyone what I said?
Yeah, so to answer that question, in order to find out, who your school psychologist is, just talking to administration or counselors, they probably will know who it is. And also, you could search it up online, I'm pretty sure. So you can also do it just in case, people in your office building just don't know what's going on. And to answer the second part of the question, no, counselors will not tell, everyone your secrets that you tell them. The only reason they'll tell them is that if you're having, self-harming thoughts or harming others, and that's when they'll contact your parents. But other than that, anything that you'll tell them will stay confidential.
Thank you, Daniel. So the next question is, how do we get access to culturally responsive mental health services in communities of need or communities with limited access?
Now that's a very good question. And so one of the things I know as a director of psych services, we try to work with all of our mental health professionals around training them around culturally responsive mental health services and trying to provide therapeutic services or counseling services in a culturally responsive way. We also try to work on our hiring practices to make sure we have a diverse range of mental health practitioners in our schools who also speak a variety of languages, because we know Montgomery County is probably one of the most diverse counties in the country. And so we want to make sure that, we have staff that can work with all of our students. And when we say all, we mean all. And so, and that's one of the things we look for when hiring staff is to make sure that, they're in a place where you may work with a student who looks differently than you, who may come from a different culture or speak a different language than you do. And so we want to make sure that the staff in our schools are available to talk to any of our students, regardless of their background. And we also try to work with our community providers that are providing mental health services in our schools to make sure that they are providing services in a culturally affirming way as well. But we all know this is something that we all work on. This is something that is an area of growth, and that I'm not here to say and promote that it's perfect. But, this is something that we actively engage in. We actively have lots of conversations around as a staff. And so we just want to make sure that, because I know, we had a Waymaking special once on around discrimination around mental health, and especially in communities of color. And so we just want to make sure that our families, our students, of any background knows that we are available to you, and that we want to be able to provide the best support that we can provide to help you with any types of issues or concerns that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Chester. So the next question, a viewer wanted to know, how do they go about talking to a classmate about their mental health issues, at least before they talk to a trusted adult?
I think that I've been in this scenario a lot of times. I think the best way is just to let them know that you're there for them, but also that they need help. So for example, one of my friends was going through a really dark time, and he was afraid to open up to a teacher. And I just was there for him. I listened to him, I let him know that I'll always be there for him, but I also explained the situation, and I explained that he needed help that I couldn't give him. I think that that's the best way, because even though he was bad for a little bit, your friends will eventually understand that you were you're acting in their best interest, and you didn't mean to harm, you're not there to harm them, and you actually got them help, and you actually got them the support that they needed.
Thank you. So a viewer would like to know, what kind of mental health extracurricular or after-school activities can students get involved in?
So like we talked about earlier, there are Minds Matter clubs. And if there's not one already at your school, it's very easy to start one. And I believe Catherine Royston was on the call earlier, but she's like the coordinator for our Minds Matter. So if like there was a way for a viewer to reach out to her, then that would be great. But just like advocacy clubs like that, specifically designated for mental health, there are clubs like that exist, and they are easy to start at different schools too.
Thank you. So this viewer would like to know, they said that they feel that mental health has been a problem for a long time now. How come this issue has just started to be known now?
I think it's because people now are so like us, for example, are so passionate about like destigmatizing it. I know like for my parents' generation, mental health, especially because like they immigrated here from Ethiopia, mental health, they had no idea what that was. Like you just go through it. Like if you're going to cry, don't. Like it's just not something they worried about. It's not something they discussed. It's not something they cared about. But now mental health is starting to get more normalized. My parents are becoming more and more understanding. And like understanding that, like that my siblings, you might need help, or that like the people that they work with, or even them themselves that need some support when it comes to mental health. And I think that now, like with opportunities like this forum, students are really passionate about like advocacy and like pushing this agenda that, mental health isn't a bad thing and that there's nothing wrong with needing help. There's nothing wrong with having depression, anxiety, and that there's many other people out there with it too. So you're not alone.
Thank you. So there's another question about what are ways we can help our peers who are suffering from depression?
So again, I think the best way is just to be there for them and just support them, and just being able to listen to them and letting them know that they're not alone. Because oftentimes, people with depression often feel like they're alone, that they're the only ones going through that struggle, and then no one understands them. And just letting them know that you're there, just keeping tabs on them, checking up on them, and just being, supportive of them, and kind of, listening to them throughout their experience, listen to them talk about their experience and talk about what's wrong. And if they do have suicidal thoughts, just, making sure that you get in contact with a counselor or another trusted adult in order to, make sure that your friend gets the support they need.
So this viewer would like to know, what kinds of things can we talk to our counselor or psychologist about?
You can really talk to your counselor and psychologist really about anything that's either upsetting you or just really anything in general. They are here to be your support and to help you if it's academic or not academic. So yeah, you can just always reach out to your counselor. I know they'd probably be really happy to talk to you.
Yeah, to add on to that, I also think that when people think of like therapy or like a psychologist, they think you have to talk to them if something bad is happening or if you're in a really bad mental state. But you can also talk to them if you're doing well, like if your mental health is improving, if you're doing well in school, if you're enjoying your classes, you're making friends, you're doing great in life. They'd love to see that you're improving and that your mental health is in a like much better state now. So you don't only have to talk to them about bad things. You can also talk about like good things and all of the benefits and like that you've gotten from starting to get help. So
yeah, like what Bezo and Alex said, you can just talk to them about anything. It doesn't have to be related to school. I know that I talk to my counselor about everything, like what I did this weekend, where I went out, who I met, just like anything. And because it really is a place for you to really open up and really express how you feel and just talk about anything with them. It's an open conversation.
Thank you, guys. As a counselor, I appreciate those words. The next question is, who do I go to if I or someone I know is experiencing bullying?
You can go to just about any adult in the building when it comes to bullying, whether that's counselor, security guard, the principal. There isn't anyone who won't be able to help you when it comes to bullying, but I'm not sure if this is in every school, but there are little posters with QR codes if you choose to be anonymous when reporting things like bullying. And this will go to the staff and it'll be handled from there anonymously if you do wish to say something in private.
Yeah, I also think that if going to an adult and talking about bullying is like a huge step for you, going and opening up to your friends is like also a very big deal. I know a lot of my friends have been bullied in the past and like I had no idea. And like I hated that I didn't know until they got the courage. And I'm so happy that they decided to open up to me. I got to talk to them about it and like see their emotions and their feelings. And they got to like understand the whole situation themselves and like, because they were like invalidating what was happening for a long time. Like, oh, maybe this isn't actually bullying. Maybe I'm just like overthinking this, but they weren't. And they came to me. I helped them and supported them and guided them to a trusted adult, which was like the next step. And they're doing great now, which is, awesome. So you don't have to go straight to an adult. You can go straight to a friend because that's also a big step.
I just real quickly, before we go to the next question, I just wanted to bring up the point about the bullying, and that just want to remind our students and our families that are watching this today that we do also have an online bullying reporting form that you can go to and report cases of bullying that is occurring. You can always talk to your staff in the building and administrator, your mental health staff as well. And as Lensa brought up, we do have an anonymous tip line system, the Maryland Safe Schools anonymous tip line that students and family members can report incidents of bullying and other incidents that happen in schools as well to the anonymous tip line. It does allow for some two-way anonymous communication. So you'll talk to somebody at the state and then somebody at the state can contact you. And then the state then sends those emails and messages in terms of what's in there and the help that you need to our staff here in Montgomery County. I know I'm one of the individuals who receives those. And so if you send one in, we do read all of them and we do respond quickly. I just want to make sure that our students and our families are aware of our tip line system so that you can go and if you want to report these things, again, we have the reporting form that's online, and we also have the anonymous tip line that you can go to.
Thank you for that information. So this next question is, how do all voices get heard across the county related to mental health?
So there's really different ways you can really express your voice and kind of advocate for mental health. So I know that, you can go and testify to the Board of Education, and they usually take everyone. You just have to sign up early. You can also get involved with other student leadership organizations like MCR, Mocha for Change, and all these other great clubs that, you can kind of advocate with and work with legislators, work with other students, work with fellow peers that have the same thoughts and ideas as you, and work on ways you can, improve mental health in this county.
All right. What are some ways to cope with anxiety?
I think that it's important that you have also ways to like de-stress. So for me, I know I like to count down from 10, or when I'm feeling really stressed, I like to go pet my dogs and have just take like a 5-minute break. So just find the activities that you can do that are not, stressful, and something that you can use to really distress. And if you're really having a hard time, you can talk to your parents about it or a trusted adult at your school, and they'll get you the help that you need.
Yeah, I agree with Daniel. Like doing activities that don't require like too much work, or like activities that you really enjoy. For me, if I ever get super anxious with like school, I like to not think about school, turn on some like calming, like lo-fi, like music, and like draw, even if it's like for 10 minutes, or like write something or read a book. It's just like, it doesn't have to be for a long time. It can be like something short, and it really calms me down before I have to like actually get back to schoolwork or like get back to my responsibilities. So it can it can be anything, like anything that you enjoy to do.
Whenever I'm feeling like a stressful moment, I try and just do like a brain dump and either talk to someone who doesn't mind hearing me ramble about what's going on, or like write it down in my notes app or on my journal and just write about everything that I need to do, everything I'm thinking about, and just kind of get it out there so it's not like building up in your mind, but you're kind of releasing that stress somewhere else. And also, if you're talking to another person or even just writing it down and thinking it out for yourself, you can sort of see like if there are things that you need clarity on, or like, I don't know, I guess issues you need to think more about to move on from, then that gets opened up to you as well. You can open up to other people. So just talking things out with yourself or with others is really helpful for me.
Thank you. So our next question is, how can a school that doesn't have therapy dogs get them to come?
So one way that you can have therapy dogs come to your school is to work with your school administrators, whether that be through an Our Minds Matter club or through maybe your student government, to just work with your school administrators and ask them, could you please have therapy dogs one day? And I'm sure that everyone will work together in trying to get that done.
All right. And who can students talk to about college-related stress?
Every school has a college and career advisor. They can help you with anything related college, future careers. And if you're stressed out about college, they are great people to go to. They have pretty much any resource you can think of when it comes to college, and they can help you with that stress. But counselors as well, they're really good people to go to. They can help you with everything, anything related to college.
Thank you. So our next question is, my friend doesn't want me to tell anyone they are struggling with their mental health. How do they handle these situations?
I think that the friend, like even telling you that they're struggling is great and must have been a very big deal for them. And I think the first step would just be like listening to them and being really understanding, but also like explaining to them that you're a student, like the same as them, and that you can't provide everything that they need. And like you won't always know how to support them. So like trying to convince them to go to a trusted adult, an adult they trust, like a parent, a teacher they really like, a friend's parent, anything, someone that they're comfortable with, and then getting them to talk to them. But if it's something more serious like self-harm or like suicidal thoughts, that's when you would have to go straight to an adult. And I understand that it must suck for your friend to be mad at you, but it's better for them to be mad at you, but get the help they need than them continue to not get the help they need, continue to have those thoughts, and maybe actually commit suicide or like the self-harm go too far. So it's better to like stop it, like to not be friends with them anymore and know that they're in a safe and healthy spot in life than like not help them at all.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we have a few more questions about Our Minds Matter clubs. So there's a few of them. So what is Our Minds Matter club? So if you can just give a little description about it. Are they only in high schools, or are they also available in middle schools? And what could you do if your school does not have Our Minds Matters club? And are there any other clubs you can join? So that was a lot, but can you answer?
So an Our Minds Matter club at its core is a club focused on mental health. So I know in Our Minds Matter, the organization, they talk about club wellness and school-wide wellness. So they focus on creating a community and a safe space and making sure their members are aware of coping strategies and resources where they can get help if they need it, but also doing school wellness activities, so like reaching out throughout the school and doing more advocacy and events. But basically, it's just a club focused on mental health, and you can go a lot of different ways with that. I believe they're predominantly in high schools, but middle schools can have them, and I think there are some throughout the country or even our county. And if your school doesn't have an Our Minds Matter club, you could start one. And you can look up Our Minds Matter in Montgomery County, and we have a really great Montgomery County coordinator who can work with all the student leaders to help them find a sponsor, help them find other members, and get their club started. But this is less about Our Minds Matter, but other clubs you could join. I think just on a mental health related note, finding a club that's your safe space, or something that brings you joy and something where you can connect with people. If there's not a club specifically dedicated to mental health, then finding a place like that, like a choir or youth and government is one of my favorites, where it's like a place where you can open up to people, find people who you have common interests with, maybe spend time with a certain teacher who you have a connection with, and just be around people who know you and care about you. Then that is just as important as having a club that's explicitly for mental health.
Yeah.
And I just like to.
Sorry, Alex. To add on to that, I think what's really important is like if your school doesn't have one, start one. Be the person to like take the step to like if you want one, then there's like a really high chance that there's other kids at your school who also want one but are too scared to actually start looking for one or too scared to even admit that they need the help. So if your school doesn't have an Our Minds Matter club or like any other mental health related club, take the first step, find a sponsor, find people you think would be interested, and start the club.
And I just want to add on that if you go to the Our Minds website, Our Minds Matter website, ourmindsmatter.org, right at the top of the page, it does say to join us, and it gives you all the information on what you might want to look for in a sponsor and how to find some different student leaders in starting an Our Minds Matter club.
And also just to throw in there a little bit, so any of you students, if you go and you talk to your mental health staff or your administrators and you're interested in the club, yes, we do have Ms. Catherine Royston, who is our liaison to Our Minds Matter. I also oversee the agreement with Our Minds Matter, so I can help you do that. And also that we are expanding into our middle schools this year. So if you were watching us and you were at a middle school and you want an Our Minds Matter club, we can help you to create one. So I just want to throw that plug out there. Okay.
There's a lot of information for Our Minds Matter. That's a great club. So this question comes from a viewer who asked, are there services for students and adults who don't speak English?
And I would say yes. And so we do have staff, we have counselors, we have ESOL transition counselors, school-based ESOL counselors, and some of our social workers, some of our psychologists, our normal counselors, like they also speak languages other than English, and they can provide support to students who do not speak English, and try to work with them in the language that they speak, and especially our ETCs, our EML transition counselors, they especially work with our students, our newcomers who are coming into our country who don't speak English. And so, and they provide tons of support around the county for students. And so there's a variety of supports and help. It's just a matter of finding out where they are, who can provide the support for you, and so forth. We also have outside community providers who work within our schools that also provide support in languages other than English as well.
Thank you, Dr. Chester. So the next question is, if a student's counselor left over the summer and is having a hard time connecting with their new counselor, who can they talk to?
And I would say you can go in your schools, you have what's called a resource counselor. And your resource counselor is kind of like the leaders of the counselors in the school. And so they can help you if you're struggling talking with your counselor, or maybe things aren't gelling, you can go and if you're having trouble talking with that person, you can go talk to the resource counselor, and they can help you to kind of see what's going on, or figuring out like what can we do to help to build that relationship with your new counselor. Because sometimes it's hard. You have a rapport with somebody, you're used to talking to them, and they know you, and then it's like, I got to get to know this new person. And sometimes that's hard to do. And sometimes it just takes time to build that relationship up again with the new person, because who knows, they could be better than the last one. But sometimes things just don't work, and maybe it's time to find another person. And so there is staff in your schools that can help you with that.
So this next question asks, what do I do if my friend is having burnout?
If you do have a friend who is going through a burnout, I would recommend just letting them know you're there for them, and you'll always be there. But I also think you should try and work with your friend to try and find something that they're interested in and habits that they can do to help themselves come out of the burnout, to have, it's like a coping mechanism, something to take their minds off of whatever it is that's burning them out, and regain interest back in what they're doing.
Okay. The next question is actually a really important question. My friend is cutting herself. Does that mean she wants to kill herself? What can I do to help her?
Yeah, so self-harm doesn't necessarily mean that you're planning on committing suicide, but I say that again, because she is committing self-harm, please just make sure that you contact the adult right away, because you never know when she might, take it a little bit too far, or then when self-harm might translate into suicidal thoughts. So just contact a trusted adult in order to get your friend the help that she needs.
And I definitely want to reiterate what Danielle said. If you have a friend who is cutting themselves, get help from an adult. Whether if you're at school, go talk to a trusted adult in the building. If you're at home, go talk to a family member so that we can go and get the help for your friend that they need. Because again, cutting is a sign of, needing some significant help. And so we just want to make sure that we have supports in place for them. And I just want to reiterate again, the 988 suicide and crisis hotline number that you can call if you are in need of support and you need somebody to talk to. You can use that number to call, text, or chat as well. And so it is our newest way. It just got started in July for anyone to call, just like calling 911. You can call them and talk to somebody to get support. And so again, I really want to thank our panel for all of the comments and feedback and support and providing to our participants who are watching. I know for our participants watching, there was a little bit of a glitch. The internet went out for a little bit, but we're back. And so we're glad to have everybody continue on with us for the evening. But our conversation for tonight is coming to a close. Again, I want to thank you all for being here and supporting our live student mental health forum for this evening. And so as we're going through and all the topics that were discussed and all of the comments that were made, we're just really appreciative of all of you and the information that you shared during this time. And so now, and again, I want to thank our moderators for the Q&A and our panelists for your support this evening. So you're free to turn off your cameras now. And so I want to remind our audience that you can still go online to our Mental Health Awareness Week website, where you can have access to our asynchronous video options, and there's a wide variety of mental health topics that are covered on the website. You can go to mcpsmentalhealth.org to access all the videos. And again, students can get SSL hours for watching certain videos that have an SSL hour indication next to it. And so if you watch a certain amount of them, you fill out the little form, you can get up to 5 hours for that. These services, you can follow the link or the QR code to complete the SSL form. It must be complete by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, November the 10th. And then next, this is the form for the SSL hour. So please make sure that, I'm sorry, not by November, you must complete this SSL form by 5 p.m. tomorrow on October the 13th. And so this is for getting SSL hours for watching this event live today. I know many of you have been waiting for this moment. So please use the QR code or use the bit.ly link and go to and fill out the form so that you can go and get your SSL. And again, it is not by November. That was a mistake. I'm reading it wrong. You have until October the 13th, tomorrow, by 5 p.m. To get your 2 SSL hours for participating in this event, watching, and then you can complete the form that is attached to this link. And then also, we do have an evaluation for our event tonight. And so you can go to the QR code and you can complete this. And so to give us feedback about tonight's event. And so we do read your feedback, and it'll help us as we plan out for future student mental health forums. And again, I want to make sure that I acknowledge and thank all of the people behind the scenes who have helped in the development of this mental health forum tonight. All of our panelists, especially my co-host, Alex, who came on and helped us with all of this this week. I want to also, thank our moderators for the Q&A, all of the folks on TV, and all of the folks helping in the chat, all of our mental health staff that are in the chat watching, all of our staff members who helped us to get the students, everybody. It was just so many people. I cannot name everybody on here tonight, but again, we want to thank you all for coming, helping us with this. And as always, we always want to thank our viewers for joining us for our live Waymaking special on student mental health tonight. We hope that you all be well and have a great evening.